Welcome. My name is Austin, and alongside me is my fellow broadcaster Michael. We start off today by listening to 10 most important events of the 1930s. Let's kick it off by talking about the importance of shifting alliances.
You're totally right. Let's do it. While this topic is not composed of a singular event, there are multiple events that influenced and changed the course of history leading into World War II.
Since there are many different alliance changes, we are going to focus on the major ones that specifically caused the most dramatic change in the world, like the Non-Aggression Pact.
The German and Polish Non-Aggression Pact took place during 1934 and essentially formed an agreement between Poland and Germany, while also allowing Germany to get back at France. Well, you may ask, what did it do? What did it directly do?
It allowed for Germany to make France less of a threat, with Poland being another country nearby that would not be able to help France in the event of an attack. The actual pact agreed that both sides were not engaged in conflict for 10 years.
It is also extremely important to mention the Stresa Front and how France, Britain, and Italy said that they would protect each other.
But glad you mentioned the Stresa Front, because after the Spanish Civil War, the Rome-Berlin Axis was signed, where Italy and Germany accepted friendship and allowed for the other countries to build a relationship with each other. This specifically canceled the Stresa Front and Italy's relationship with Britain and France.
And if you thought that Germany was done with their influence, following later was the Anti-Comintern Pact, as to where Germany and Japan would work together in case of an attack from the Soviet Union. This is also important in terms of picking sides for a possible upcoming war.
You're right. It did seem like there was a lot of picking sides in this process of the alliances between the countries in Europe changing.
Totally right, and alliances could be the most important events in the 1930s.
Next, we move on to an important event for Germany.
Perhaps one of Hitler's most ambitious moves was on March 7th, 1936.
That's right, Michael. The remilitarization of the Rhineland was a bold move by Hitler, as 33,000 German troops entered the Rhineland.
The Rhineland was the part of Germany demilitarized by the Treaty of Versailles.
This move was a turning point in history because it believed that if Hitler was stopped here, then he would have backed off.
In fact, Hitler himself stated that if the French had shown up to stop them, Germany would have immediately turned tail and ran. So tell me, Austin, why exactly did Hitler want to retake the Rhineland?
Well, Hitler wanted to take advantage of the disruption of the Abyssinian crisis
Abyssinian crisis.
That's right. In order to gain the crucial piece of land of the Rhineland.
The Rhineland was important because it was a key industrial region in Germany, which produced vital resources such as coal, steel, and iron.
By remilitarizing the Rhineland, Hitler was able to challenge the terms of the Treaty of Versailles while also weakening France.
This was a major development considering Hitler was mad about the Franco-Soviet alliance that recently happened.
That's right. However, it is also important to note that Great Britain accepted Germany's occupation of the Rhineland because they believed that it was already theirs.
Although France was heavily frustrated, they were unable to do anything without Britain's help.
That is right, Michael. But speaking of help, that leads me right into the Spanish Civil War, a conflict that began in 1936 and concluded in 1939.
Of course, the two sides of the war were the Republicans and the Nationalists. First, the Republicans consisted of liberals, communists, anarchists, and other left-wing groups.
The Nationalists, on the other hand, consisted of landowners, royalists, individuals that associate with the Catholic Church, and the Fascist Party.
Who do you have winning this, Austin?
Well, glad you mentioned that, because Italy and Germany would join the side of the Nationalists in this war.
What was in it for them?
Well, it provided Germany with an opportunity to test out their new weapons on the poor people of Spain.
Also, Italy left the Stresa Front and seemed to be wanting to grow closer with Germany.
The war got so bad that even Pablo Picasso, a Spanish artist, made a famous painting known as the Guernica, showing the suffering of the Spanish. The war had varying consequences.
Not only did it separate Britain and France from Italy, but it also made the idea of war more acceptable. I know you have been ready to talk about this one, Austin.
You know it, Michael. Possibly one of the most important events of the decade that led to appeasement was the invasion of Czechoslovakia.
The military occupation of Czechoslovakia started with the occupation of the Sudetenland in 1938. The most famous event for appeasement can be known as the Munich Agreement, which occurred in March 1938. This is not only important, but it shows how scared the other countries in Europe were of the power of Germany. Also, Czechoslovakia was said to be a dagger that was pointed at the heart of Germany. It was crazy that Czechoslovakia should have been considered to be safe from an attack.
Right? They had treaties with the USSR and France. They were all supposed to be protected by the League of Nations. Also, it was said that Germany was not ready to attack, but still decided to do so either way. Michael, why even is this important for Germany deciding to invade Czechoslovakia?
Well, this is important and connected to appeasement and the Munich Pact. Since it was clear, especially that the other countries did not want to directly join these efforts. Instead, Chamberlain, Daladier, Hitler, and Mussolini agreed on the Munich Pact. And you asked, what did it include?
Well, it said that the Germans would be able to join the Sudeten territory, thus essentially giving up and making an agreement on the behalf of a country that was not even invited to Munich to negotiate.
This just goes to show the importance of appeasement, and especially that the plan was to satisfy Germany and to keep peace with this aggressive power.
This was such an important decision and event for the entire decade in Europe and how Germany approached their needs and wants.
We'll talk about tensions, Austin. You should lead us right into the next one.
Yes, I will, Michael. In 1939, tensions were clearly building up, as were specifically in the Pact of Steel, we were able to see more connections between countries.
Exactly right. In the Pact of Steel, we get to see Italy and Germany in connection to the Rome-Berlin Axis Agreement in 1936. This pact officially connects Italy and Germany both politically and, more importantly, militarily.
While this pact did seem to be simple and transparent, this also caused reactions from other countries. As we talked about earlier, Britain and France stopped appeasement.
This was just a very just action. However, don't you think that Britain and France should have done this a lot sooner? And also be smarted in many key events, including the Munich push and the cycle of appeasement?
While there's not a lot of specific details regarding the Pact of Steel, we can clearly see that the importance of the event that was able to make the top 10 for the decade.
I'm just going to correct myself from earlier. Munich Pact, not push.
Michael, I know you've been waiting to talk about this Nazi-Soviet pact.
You know it, Austin. The Nazi-Soviet Pact occurred in August 1938. First, let's start with the intent behind this pact. As you well know, Germany always was a country that valued expansion, but they had competition to form a pact with Russia. While we did talk about alliances earlier, this one specifically deserved its own event.
Indeed, that was true. Britain and France also wanted to form a pact that would essentially be able to cause a war that did not have two fronts, and Germany was to attack Poland or any other country nearby. Now, Michael, if you were in Russia, who exactly would you side with?
Excellent that you asked that question. Well, both sides had different strengths and weaknesses. First, Germany had drive and dedication. The foreign minister Ribbentrop was prepared to fly out to Russia to discuss military arrangements.
Now, on the other side, Russia had promised to help the Czechs in the event of an attack from Germany, causing possible disagreements and struggles in a possible arrangement.
Let's not forget about Germany choosing to stop publicizing any form of attacks on Russia and paving the change towards peace and friendly relations.
That is true, as Germany really did change temporarily to gain the support and favor in the race for peace pact with Russia. Well, next in September of 1939, most definitely one of the biggest events in the decade. Wouldn't you say, Michael?
Totally. That would be the biggest known event, known as the invasion of Poland.
You say it perfectly. Right off the start, Germany had Poland outnumbered with 70 divisions to their 30, 500 tanks to Poland's 600, 5,000 tanks to Poland's 600, and 6,000 planes to Poland's 1,000.
As well as Germany, due to the Anglo-German Pact, had new weapons and equipment.
On the other hand, Poland had beaten down old equipment, giving the tactical advantage to Germany.
The easy advantage, and then as well as the use of blitzkrieg, with 3 steps.
First, the Germans used airplanes to shoot down the other airplanes that were already on the ground. Kind of sounds like a surprise attack.
That indeed led to the next step, where they destroyed nearby communication towers, as well as forms of mobility, including bridges, railroads, and even major highways.
Ridiculous, but very smart, as Poland's operation was slowed down dramatically.
Then finally, the Nazis used their own armed groups on the ground to attack the Polish.
However, with the holdout of Warsaw for 20 plus days, 3 weeks after the start of the invasion, Russia got involved with Germany, leading to the main cause of World War II.
Moving on to Benito Mussolini in Italy. How are they doing, Austin?
Well, like every other country following the Great Depression, their economy is a disaster and in need of more resources.
Oh, so you're implying Mussolini was trying to fix this, yeah?
That's right. Mussolini decided to invade Ethiopia, aka
Abyssinia.
That's right.
By invading Ethiopia on October 3rd, 1935, Mussolini began his conquest for a place in the sun, as he needed to divert attention from the impact of the Great Depression and gain territory which would provide an export market for Italian goods as well as allow for emigration.
The catalyst for Mussolini's ambitions was the incident Wall Wall, where 30 Italians were killed in a clash with Amnesians at the Wall Wall Oasis.
Mussolini demanded compensation and an apology, but as the League of Nations investigated, Mussolini instructed his troops to conquer all of Abyssinia.
However, Britain and France attempted to appease the Italians by offering them most of
Abyssinia.
with this Ethiopia leader Salaseh received access to the sea.
This plan was known as the Hoare-Laval Pact, which was unsuccessful as it was leaked by the French press and led to public outrage in Britain and France.
As for the war, Italians' force proved to be too strong
For
for
the
them.
Abyssinians.
Over 400,000 Italians invaded with poison gas and superior weapons.
Poor Abyssinia was brutally outmatched for sure. As a result of the invasion, Mussolini drifted away from Britain and France and became closer with Hitler. The successes of the invasion led to a surge in Italian nationalism and encouraged Mussolini to further his ambitions.
That's right. These fascist ambitions that were prevalent in Hitler and Mussolini continued to grow, and the Western Democratic began to realize that appeasement wasn't going to work. The aggressive drive of Germany and Italy continued to grow, and these two began to align with each other. As more and more alliance developed, Europe began to split, and World War II became inevitable.
Well, next is March 12, 1938, with the union of Austria and Germany, which was known as Anschluss.
Although contact between these two countries was forbidden in Article 80 of the Treaty of Versailles, Hitler took advantage of the Austrian minister who originally stood up to Hitler but yielded when he realized he would be receiving support from Italy or British.
No support. On March 11th, Schuschnigg announced Austria would give in without struggle and accept Hitler as chancellor.
Goring pushed the pace of the invasion because he was interested in Austrian economy assets and avoiding the fight of the capital, which was a prolonged crisis that might have resulted in.
Furthermore, a telegram was sent to provide an excuse for the German soldiers' arrivals, to make it seem like the Austrians had requested them to come to prevent bloodshed.
As a result, the annexation went smoothly as German Panzer tanks took the time to fuel at patrol stations and used tourist maps to navigate through Austria.
So what impact did this invasion have on the world?
Well, Hitler now had direct access to the whole southeastern Europe, and from Vienna, he was extremely close to Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and Hungary.
Not only did Hitler now have access to this part of Europe, but his friendship with fellow fascist tyrant Mussolini continued to grow, and Hitler became convinced that ruthless power politics such as blackmail and intimidation were the most effective policies. Last but not least, we have the invasion of Albania.
Looks like Italy's back on the board for new territory.
The year was 1939.
Mussolini wanted to continue to emulate Hitler's success given his adventures in Czechoslovakia.
Furthermore, conquering Albania would open ancient paths of Roman conquest and glory of the past while threatening Italy's neighbors, Britain.
It's important to understand that Albania had excellent agricultural potential and an extensive deposit of coal.
That's right. Its major strength was potential mineral wealth, and the annexation of Albania would claim them for Italy, while also preventing further German penetration here.
So how did the invasion go down?
There were many parallel similarities to Ethiopia. Mussolini once again used the might of Italian warplanes and warships to attack Albania. Despite his efforts to resist, King Zog, the leader of Albania, was forced into exile, and the Italians overran the country. So, what was the result for the global affairs?
The British then counterattacked Italian forces in North Africa in Operation Compass and pushed them out of Egypt. Furthermore, the British Navy sank half of the Italian fleet. British condemned the Italian invasion, and Chamberlain no longer trusted the dictators. Thank you.